At no time has the importance of learning and development been increasingly felt than today. Such an unexpected disruption had come in our lives and professions in the form of pandemic. How do we face it, surmount it, and get ahead in the big question? Learning its impact and the new normals that had created and adapting our lives according to it is the key. And the aim of this panel discussion is to deliberate the same. For this, we have brilliant panelists and moderator who will be introduced to you later. Let me get into my task to welcome everyone. We are indeed privileged to have Mr. John Devdasan, President, St. Gobain Glass Division, Mr. G.D. Sharma, Founder and Principal Beeline HR Advisor, Mr. Dinesh P. Thambi, Vice President Operations, Tata Consultancy Service, and also Management Committee member of Kochi ISTD chapter, Dr. R. Nandakumar, Director, Zyme, Kochi, and life member of ISTD. Our moderator, Mr. S.R. Nair, past chairman and National Council member of ISTD. I wholeheartedly welcome all of you. I also welcome all the participants present here. Let's have a great learning session this evening. Thank you, and back to Professor George Paul.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. So before I introduce the panelists, let me give you a brief introduction about XIME. Not many of you probably know about XIME, but the Xavier Institute of Management and Entrepreneurship was co-founded by Professor Jay Philip and is amongst the top 50 business schools in the country. We have 3 campuses, and the Kochi campus is where I'm sitting. And in a couple of days' time, we will induct the 8th batch of students. In today's webinar, we will discuss how the pandemic has made us to rethink learning and development across not just industry, but also amongst professionals. What will change and what should change would be the topic for deliberation. Let me introduce the panelists now. Our first panelist is Mr. Dinesh Thambi. He is the Vice President and Delivery Center Head of Tata Consultancy Services in Kerala. In his almost 30-year career span in information technology, he has held various cross-functional leadership roles and also across continents. He is the immediate past president of the Kerala Management Association. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Our second panelist is Mr. John Devdasan. He is the National Head of Operations at St. Gobain. With over 35 years of experience in the manufacturing sector, Mr. Devdasan has held cross-functional leadership roles in engineering, manufacturing operations, strategic planning, to mention a few. Welcome, sir. Our third panelist is Mr. G.D. Sharma, a highly regarded HR veteran with over 40 years of rich experience in a highly diversified range of business sectors. He has served in the boards of Larsen & Toubro, Manali Petrochemicals, and Tamil Nadu Petro Products. He is also visiting faculty and advisor to many educational institutions. The fourth panelist is Dr. R. Nandagopal. He's the director at XIME Kochi and also my boss. Prior to this, he was the director at PSG Coimbatore for over 17 years. Currently, he is the longest serving director of any business school across the country. He is a quintessential academician with an eye for research, and he's also a mentor to many PhD aspirants. Last but not the least is our moderator for the day, Mr. S.R. Nair. He's the past chairman of ISTD and is currently its National Council member. He is a serial entrepreneur himself, and he has been creating entrepreneurs in Kerala through his role as chief mentor at Mentor Guru. He's an author. He's also an expert member of the Seed Fund Committee at KSIDC and a governing council member of TiE Kerala. Welcome, sir, and over to you, sir.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Professor George, and I welcome all the panelists who have been very properly introduced by Professor George. And also, Nirmala, thank you very much for a lovely welcome that you have done. My dear participants of this webinar, this will be a 1 hour affair, about 45 minutes of panel discussion, about 10 minutes of question and answer in the end. And also, just before we do this, I would also like to do a small poll just to take a little cue from you all on how you have utilized your time while you were logged in at your respective homes or wherever you were, as well as you were working from home. So I would request Professor and the tech person at Zyme to put that poll on the screen, please, for the people. And this is it's an activity time, maybe about a minute or so, and then we'll get a feedback, and I'll decipher the feedback and get going with my activity. Can this be done, Professor George, please? Yeah. What you see on the screen, during the lockdown, while you were working at home, have you voluntarily undergone any formal learning or certification process on any skill or competency? And the answers are yes, I did. Some informal learning I had or started, but I haven't completed it, and none at all. Now you can click. Only one. You just click only one. Yes. Let's see. We're getting to be close to a minute now. So once it's a minute here, Professor George and company will close it and bring the finding on the screen. Is it done, Professor?
Yes.
Can we have the findings on the screen?
Can you see the screen or?
Yeah, it could be put on the screen. It would be good. You can screen share like that what you have done at the poll, or
it is.
Yes, good. The screen is there.
Yeah.
The host is sharing the poll results. Okay. Oh, that's great news. 76% of you have done something, learning some formal learning or certification process. Great. Okay. And 9% of you said that, okay, I have done some informal learning. And some 8% said that, okay, I started it as usual, I could not complete it. And only about 7, I did not do anything. So great. I'm so happy that close to about 80% of the people did not waste their time. They have been indulging in some or the other learning process, which has enhanced their competency as well as their skills. Good. That's a great feeling to start with. I think we can kickstart. Now, I don't want to get back to what Nirmala said and Professor said so that we can save the time. Now, you know that, okay, the last 4 months, okay, beginning March, the shutdown, close down, the containing, all these things put together, we have, and that's one on the side, that is a health issue. Second is a economic issue. The economic issue of many nations of the world, including the mighty US of A, where things are, debacles happening, So actually, the strategic inflection had happened on the world, both commercially, economically, as well as on people, their health, etc. Okay, so I call it a strategic inflection point. This pandemic, I call it a strategic inflection. And now we have, okay, I hear some noise. Can that be contained, please? Okay, and now we're going to call now this era as pre-COVID and post-COVID, after COVID and before COVID. So BC and AC. After COVID hasn't come. We are currently undergoing the COVID times, and in many parts of the country, the numbers are still on the ascendancy. It is still going up. So we have not actually gone through the first cycle, the first flattening. We have not gone through. Anyway, so the process is on. Now, I would like to go to the senior most panelist among us, a person with a very vast experience in the field, both in administration, learning and development, HR management, organizational management, independent directorship, and you name it, everything. Now, sir, Mr. G.D. Sharma, sir, I would like to essentially understand the strategic inflection that has happened and the conduct of the learning and development process. Okay, how do we the change the conduct of learning and development process? How has it changed, and how it is going to be? Will you be able to give us some input on that, sir?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. S.R. Nair. First of all, at a very philosophical level or at a very macro level, learning and development is intertwined intricately, I would say, with the company's values and the people philosophy. So if it is to be seen as a must-do instead of a good-to-do kind of a situation, and seen as a business enabler via the capability building route, then L&D will always be viewed as a capital investment. So there is no question of, a crisis time and good time for L&D. L&D is a, is a discipline for all seasons, actually.
I'm not able to hear.
Having said,
it is going on well, Girish sir. I think you may. Others, I would like to get a chat feedback from people as to how the sound is. Anyway, please keep going, Professor Dr. Mr. Sharma.
So having said that, and rightly you used the strategic inflection point. I had a similar view on this to say that L&D itself will actually shape the strategic inflection for companies, because these resources have to be backed to L&D in such a way that you build competitive advantage for organizations. And competitive advantage for organizations today is in terms of the agility and the skill with which it is able to respond to current business situations. And the background now, thanks to the COVID, we are also seeing that, the business models themselves are also undergoing a change. I mean, so that's a new norm, as it were. And what is going to happen is that the business, supported by the change in the supply chain structure across the world, with companies relocating out of China and back into their respective countries, including in our own country, make in India kind of a thing. There is going to be, while talent can be reallocated and things like that, there is also going to be a demand for people who can quickly adapt to new requirements. So one is the hard part of the skills, which is for me to adapt to new skill requirements in the COVID and post-COVID situation. The other very interesting development across the world, which researchers have now been noticing, is that this COVID has also given rise to the need for specific skill requirements in the area of soft skills.
Yes.
I mean, in the sense that, for example, if you are able to, like the disruption on the jobs and things like that. So the ability of managers and leaders to be able to handle this emotional situation and then reconnect with their employees and so on. So the soft skills, and to build resilience and to build, crisis management skills and things like that. So somewhere it has also been said that this current crisis is too precious to let it go just like that. And therefore, is it a time for us to really invest in people? And I have today, for example, as I speak in this webinar, just an hour ago, I finished a training module for a fairly medium-sized IT company based out of Chennai. And what is their view? Their view is that while 40% of their staff is on the bench, they have not asked anybody to go. They have just said that this is the right time for reskilling our people. This is the right time for equipping them with newer skills that they will require, whether it's on the digital side or on the soft side. And so therefore, companies today are getting onto the digitization bandwagon much faster than it would have otherwise happened. So the COVID has actually hastened and accelerated organizations and individuals to embrace digitization. And just as we are doing this webinar now, there are now a lot of these L&D providers and service providers who are coming up with products in the field of L&D, where they actually ride on their digitization platform and so on. So to put it in a very positive kind of a framework, I think COVID is a given opportunity, and we are here to make the best out of it. And for businesses to reinvent their models and re-establish their equations with vendors and government and suppliers and various stakeholders and things like that, L&D is going to be a very major change, let's say intervention, because whether it's culture or whether it is systems or whether it is processes or whether it is soft skills areas and things like that, there is going to be a complete kind of a rehash and a rebooting of the entire system. And so
Yes,
therefore, L&D
okay,
will
thank
have
you.
to,
Yeah, thank you. So I think it's a beautiful comment that you started with.
Yeah, L&D will have to actually redraw the agenda, but the agenda is very clear that the future is very, very productive and positive for L&D going forward.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sharma. I mean, it is a very, very positive note you have started. The two elements that I have seen is actually, one is he didn't say it, but then almost for organization which we want to really catch up the bandwagon in the future, L&D also, this COVID also had been a blessing in this. He didn't use this word, of course, blessing in disguise, because it's preparing you, it's making you actually go through this. And the second element that you had said is a digitization. Ideally, I should have gone to Mr. Dinesh Thambi. I'm not going to him because, I would like to hear the view from the corporate and the manufacturing as well. And once I get that view, I'll go to Mr. Dinesh Thambi so that he can make it more meaningful and significant. So therefore, I go to Mr. John Devadas with his varied experience in Apollo Tyres and 3M and rest of the organization, including Saint-Gobain now and based in Chennai. Okay. Sir, I think, organization, particularly the manufacturing organization, etc., has undergone massive level of hardships and difficulties, economic, process orientation, all those things. Okay. So how have you been able to face it now? Point number one. Okay. And how are you doing the transition now? How are you facing this difficulty? And how are you planning to do the transition now? Will you be able to give us some thoughts on this, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Nair. So I'll take only 2 points. It is certainly a kind of quite challenging, and we talk about VUCA, that is
vulnerability and volatility and all those things.
Uncertainty and complex and ambiguity. I think all of them together we faced maybe in the same time. So that is a kind of a thing which most of the manufacturing would have gone through in the last 4 months, especially in the beginning, where we do not even know how the things are going to be, how it will unfold, what the government will say, and what the government will change, what is right, what WHO was saying is right, and tomorrow it get changed. So we were at a total utter confusion in the first phase of the thing, which changed, where I'll come to that. I'll take only two these things, regarding people and regarding the material. Okay, so these are the two major components in any manufacturing organization, and we are not different. So some major decision we took. We know that we are going to bleed with respect to financially for the couple of months, or as long as this is quite active. And so we know that we have to have financial stability at least for some time. So I'm not touching the financial stability for the time being. Let me talk about the people. See, we had a unique situation here in fact, the company I work with, it's Saint-Gobain at present. See, in the Saint-Gobain, the furnaces, this is a glass we produce, the furnaces are to be kept in the hot condition. So that means we have to fire the furnace continuously, keep each furnace. There are 3 furnaces in Chennai, and then another couple of furnaces in, outside this India, so in other states. So to keep the things burning, we have to have around 2,500 tons of glass in each furnace, and we require close to 100 tons of fuel or gas for each furnace. So this is a challenge. How will you do the supply chain for this? And how will you make the furnace run with the people available? That was a big challenge. So when you look at the learning and development for that matter, the biggest disadvantage what we faced was the migrant labor, the kind of almost like an exodus. We were willing to pay, we were willing to keep the people with us, but the people decided, maybe because of the kind of they are also obviously frightened by the pandemic. So many news they are hearing from all over. So people started going away. That's the biggest challenge with respect to people what we faced. And the other problem is, the 1 or 2 guys getting infected. So one guy is getting infected, in that place, the entire thing will get quarantined. So we have to quarantine. So we have to zone the place. So we were running. We are not producing, but we are operating the furnace. So we have to quarantine. So 4, 5 guys goes, then probably there's no one to run the furnace. All your cabin, the people are gone. meaning I'm not trying to explain, most of the manufacturing guys would have gone through the same thing. So, I mean, it will be a kind of repetition if I mean, elaborate it on that. So we had to bring in the first, bring all the people together, one go. Okay, the guy may know how to do or may not know how to do, the kind of a quick learning. We have to put people, train them. We cannot put them in the place immediately. So we have to put them in a place where they can land along with another person. So we more of shadowing, that's a concept we use. We just ask the guy to shadow, and wherever there's a scarcity of people, from the excess people, we'll bring in the guy to shadow the guy. Okay, after 3 or 4 days of structured training, somebody will evaluate whether the guy can operate, then you train them. So the amount of training which has gone in the last, I would say that 1 or 2 months, phenomenal. Yes. We wouldn't have done in the last 30 years. So that is a kind of a training. So we had to finally develop a group of people who are versatile. So vulnerability, if you ask me, from the B has become the important thing. As from vulnerability, you have to become versatile. So yes. Guy has to put in wherever we are in. So that was the big transition we have gone through. Okay, so I'm elaborating. I can do it quite a lot on this aspect.
Yeah, we will.
So what extent digital health?
Go ahead,
the second, sorry, I think I will take a minute and then conclude. The second thing is on the material. So we don't know when the thing will end. So that's another big thing. As I told you, every day someone has to supply 100 tons of gas, or we have huge, storage place for HFOs or alternate fuel. So we became panic. Okay, so we cannot store so much of gas in the thing. There's no pipeline in Chennai at present. So we arranged all the vehicles, but we are not too sure whether the government will allow the vehicle to come or not. So we made, I can say that we had a panic purchase of huge quantity of furnace oil, which is an alternate fuel. I think I can tell you around we had around 6,000 to 7,000 tons of furnace oil we had to bring in as alternate. So we became panic. Similarly, I'm just giving an example of this. Everywhere we started building things like. Then when things are little stabilizing, at least we know we are able to predict a little bit. So we are not able to predict exactly, but we are able to at least see next couple of months how the things look like. Now we are looking at how to go about, how to use our skills to really manage the people and also manage the inventory. So that is a kind of things we went through. I'll probably appropriately come and explain the other things if required. Now the major thing what we have gone through as a manufacturing industry is to safety of the people, the safety of the asset, and of the financial safety. These are all the 3 things which we had to work on. I think fortunately, many of us, my other colleagues in the other manufacturing industry did the same things. It's not that in Saint-Gobain we did it. But many things we have gone through is this complexity we have gone through.
Very good. Oh, it's a fantastic example that you have given, and which is pinpointing to the effectiveness of the learning, and that too being done in a cookie, and then changing them over and completely overwhelming the vulnerability or the volatility that we have. Fantastic example that you have given, sir. The time permitting, I may come back to you to ask you, or I may ask you another question a little later. Let me come to the technologist among us. Okay, the person, the vice president of TCS. Okay, Mr. Dinesh Tambe. Okay, sir. Now here, Mr. Sharma has given us how learning and development had been catalytic in changing. And Mr. John Devadasan has given some examples of how how did they achieve it. Okay. Now to you, I'm going to, because the digitization factor is there. The one is about the digitization factor, and the other is typical to learning and development. Okay. One is digitization. If you're going to talk, we have talked a lot of things, but that's I'm not going to touch. I'm going to touch the digitization part of the learning and development only. So my question to you is that how do we put this learning and development into a technology framework? Will you be able to give us some thoughts on that?
Okay. Yeah, thank you, sir. Good evening to all. And as rightly pointed by Sharma sir and John sir, see, there are a lot of examples which we can get into where there is like business vertical. There are a lot of business industries which is having a lot of.
Hello, we are losing you. Hello. Hello. Sir, have you? Hello. I think we have lost him. We'll come back. So I will not want to wait for him to come back. So I will go to Professor Nandagopal, director. In fact, with a new edition saying that a lot longest serving B school director of the country. Okay, that itself is a very highly distinguishing mark, sir. Okay, Professor, I just Dinesh, I'll come back to you because I've taken this thing to Professor, a question to Professor. I'll come back to you on that. Okay?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, right. Sir, I had been privy to listening to some of those world-best professors and technologists in Harvard and MIT, etc., saying how the educational scenario is going to be. Okay, and now they say the large campuses of the United States of America is going to be a thing of the past. It will confine to about 10% of the total number of universities, and many of them will shift into online learning. I am told about South Hampshire University. Okay, they have 145,000 students, e-learning. Okay, that is exactly what Mr. Trump didn't want to happen. He wanted people to go to the campuses. Otherwise, he said, "I'll cancel your visas." Those were happy. So the America, that technology country that it is, it actually they react to things very fast. Okay, and there are universities now going online. Now we see. One is a pure play campus-based learning, which is done by academicians and research scholars and other things. The second is completely online, like the South Hampshire University. And the third is something in between, okay, hybrid model, where for some time they may be part of the campus, and for many times they may be part of the electronic learning process, okay. But for you, this has come as a big jolt because none of us were preparing something like this to happen, sir. Okay, we were looking forward to the new batches coming to the campus and interacting with them. And many things that we teach them are one-on-one, person to person. And many things that they do are essentially, learning by doing. That we send them as interns at places. All that is looking to be a thing of the past. And many things in learning has come. E-learning is a new normal. So how do you face this? How are you preparing for this? And what do you look forward to? Please give us some input. Unmute you, please. Unmute. Right. Go ahead. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Nair. I think you talked about the Western schools which are going for digitalization and also electronic media and e-learning process. I think we have seen last couple of years, maybe couple of decades, last 20 years, most of the universities, especially business schools, went in for this online teaching. I think we have to understand the difference between Western institutions and Indian or Asian country. See, Asia, basically students, fresh graduates join the management program or the postgraduate courses. Whereas in US, especially universities in Western, they all working executives join the courses. That's the reason why online courses are very popular, because those who are already working, they want to learn, upskill their knowledge and skills. I think learning and development, they come back to university on online system. But in Indian context, culturally, we don't believe in online system because we all strongly believe that the physical thing is only useful or it can active. Okay, yes. That is one part. The second part is, I think, as you rightly said, we were almost very comfortable because in the month of March, this issue happened. We thought, okay, after vacation, we can come back 2 months, everything will sort it out. And that's how we were looking for, as you rightly said, we were looking for new batch in the campus. Then we slowly realized that things are not that easy. It may prolong. And now we understood that this problem is going to be long. And second thing, government is also not looking at us seriously, academic system. One, because we are not economically, we are not going to make any impact in the country because manufacturing and other industries have a big impact on economically. But whereas education industry, even if you lose 1 year, nothing is going to happen. That's how India, government looks at that. The second one, and of course, our sector is one of the vulnerable for the COVID, because when hundreds and thousands of students comes to campus, it is going to be a serious one. Interestingly, what happened was, in fact, the school education, primary education was well prepared because most of the private schools, last 10 years, they started using IT tools. I think you are in the IT industry and Dinesh Thambi is there. Schools catch up, I think they could able to do it very fast. Unfortunately, higher education, especially the university system, these affiliated colleges, they found it very, very difficult because most of them are not updated with the technology. Of course, it's a big challenge. how we are doing it. Again, a lot of learning development takes place in only academic sector, because we never knew what is Zoom. Today, everybody has to use Zoom. Lakhs of teachers has to use Zoom. Now you can understand how we started learning. In fact, I went through, every day we go through different courses to upskill and understand the new skills. First of all, we have to understand the technology, and then we should know how to use the technology, and effectively use the technology is most important. Culturally, I think our mode of teaching has completely gone into different. We are clueless in the beginning, and now we are trying to adapt. Maybe I will come back a little later. If you...
Great, sir. Oh, nicely said. Okay, you have the story. So 2-3 elements in that actually. So one thing that I learned from you, that actually you are learning to learn. That's a great thing. Learning to learn. You're learning to use the Zoom. You're learning to learn. That's one. Another thing, if you really look at it, all that is in the Vedas are available in the Upanishad. At the beginning of Upanishad, it says, "Come, sit by me and learn." Upanishad, "Come, sit by me and learn." So Indian system is where the guru has to be nearby. As you rightly said, it is not an online thing that they do. So the guru has to be nearby. So culturally, we may have a lot of impeaching happens because of that. I agree, and also the challenges, particularly the finance challenges. I hope some of your challenges could be mitigated by the new National Education Policy 2020, because they say that we are doing it with AICT, we are doing it with UGC, but we are bringing in some other regulations in between. We'll discuss on that a little later. Let me go back to Mr. Dinesh Thambi. The question still is there because he hasn't started answering it. I had asked this question to him on how we can learning and development can be put into a digital framework or a technology framework. Before that, Dinesh, one second. Before that, let me also tell to the participants here that there are two possibilities. One is a chat that I see some of you are chatting. That is very good. But please send your questions. Please send your questions in the column in the Q&A box. You can click Q&A and then you can actually put your questions on any of us, which Professor George will collate and will ask in the end. So let me come back to Mr. Dinesh Thambi. Sir, please go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Sorry about that. I think the connection went off.
Yeah.
So basically, if you look at it as earlier the panelists mentioned, from overall an industry standpoint, there are various business industry verticals getting disrupted. Maybe some at a very huge impact, like travel, transportation, hospitality, retail, maybe barring, pharma and food. So manufacturing, all of them are impacted. So like from an service provider standpoint or a consultancy standpoint, people is the asset. Like as earlier sir mentioned about the material, for any of the service providers, especially in the IT and IT enabled sector, the people is the key asset. And definitely the upskilling of them matters, whether it's in a lockdown scenario or in a regular scenario. As you pointed out, it's a BC or an AC or even a DC during the COVID time also. BC, DC or AC, the learning matters. So continuous learning is one thing everybody has to focus on. And just to cite an example, in fact, and making it digitized, and a digitization, there are a lot of tools, platforms available, but like that intent to go into a digital mode itself has to be there. And that is where I think it was mentioned, the digitization transformation. Earlier, many of the organizations started, and if not started, I think definitely they would have already started now. And it has to be a digitization transformation, and an acceleration is what is going to happen as of now. So from that standpoint, in fact, from a TCS example, if I quote, we went into that learning mode. We created something called a 5A learning framework in 2014, where like because a lot of new skills are coming in, it's not humanly possible to get everybody across the globe into one place or in some certain locations to teach them physically. So that is where the whole thinking came in, and we created like anytime, anyone, anywhere, any device, any content. So that is the 5A framework which we created, which helped.
Yes.
Yeah, so that definitely helped, and now it has been like come into a very mature state where like there is a sheer technical skills training happen, which is pretty much anybody can take it. They can just go subscribe themselves and learn. It's a very good WBTs and even talks and everything are there. Then the next level, what we call as a first time managers, like technical and the domain skills are needed. So there is a domain academy to support that. And obviously to a certain senior level and above, the leadership skills. And especially all these are definitely needed in this time, especially as all of us know, the life is substantially going to be different in the AC time frame. So we have to see like how we can instill that trust over a communication. I think Sharma sir touched upon the soft skills. So technology and domain is one aspect of it, but also we are like imparting a lot of trainings, and so much of hours of training has been taken by the associates, and they are also like, and not only as the poll mentioned, 80% that did already good amount of learning. That is like really motivating, because that is a key aspect how we can equip ourselves when this pandemic will go on. Like after that, how we will equip ourselves to face the new beginning. That is what all of us have to geared for, and we have to definitely learn all the aspects whichever possible, whether it's technology, domain, leadership skills, and also along with that the soft skills. Because you have to communication is a key. And all these things, as Professor mentioned, the key is that using of the digitized tools. There is Google Meet, Zoom, so many tools are available. Maybe some is very user friendly, some is like not at all user friendly, but it may be coming in like maybe at a cost. So that is also a factor to be considered. Just to cite an example, when we are talking about like the schools, the educational institutions, management colleges, universities, all those things. In fact, I think, sir, you will know about the Adarsh Charitable Trust. So there, that is like a trust which takes care of kids with cerebral palsy, autism, Down syndrome, and all of them. They have something around 400 to 450 kids they do. And in fact, like they approach, I'm also a part of their management committee. So we had a discussion. So those kids doesn't even know, or they can't even fathom to realize what is lockdown. They don't know. They are at home. Otherwise, every day morning at a certain time, they go, they come back, and things like that happen. So what we did is we created a complete classroom in a Google Meet. And in fact, as of June 1st, it was launched. The day the school started its launch, and it's really feeling very satisfied as to how it happens. 85% of the students attend that from their home. And then the devices, all of them are wherever it's not there, I think they provided. And 60 sessions per week is happening. And in fact, when you talk about the digital technologies, AR, VR, like a lot of, and the cloud is there, the digital technologies are there, which is enabling that. In fact, they also like did like on the Environment Day, planting a seed and all those things, or a tree. In fact, lessons are even conducted like how like the teacher will stand with a cow, and it's through the tool it's being communicated, and the students are like so enthusiastically participating. In fact, they are of the opinion, even if it goes back to the earlier world, they don't want to disrupt this, they want to continue that. So continuous learning, what I call it as LLL, lifelong learning, is going to be the key. We have to like brand ourselves, we have to position ourselves. For that, we have to like learn. And I think I'm so happy to see 80% of the participants are learning and doing something. And that is an encouragement to all the others.
Thank you, sir. Actually, you know, your organization had seen this much earlier in 2014 itself, to see that, you know, learning digital and anytime, anywhere, any content, and all the five NEs coming into and people learning. And also,
Nair, I wanted to add one. Once you give me an opportunity, I just want to add to what Dinesh Thampi was saying.
Yeah, go ahead.
Something related to a company. Like, for example, I don't want to name the company, but a large commercial vehicles manufacturing company headquartered in Chennai. As soon as the lockdown happened, I think within the first 2 months itself, they covered almost 75% of their executive staff through digital based programs and things like that. First one. Second is they tied up with CourseEra, CourseEra.com, and they ran the programs across disciplines, technical, non-technical, soft skills, and things like that. The third is they came up with something called as a 30 ml. I mean, not to mistake what I'm saying. It's called as a 30 ml, meaning a 30-minute learning module, because I don't think the attention span on a screen is a little limited, too longer. So they came up with a 30 ml system, and they ran again all their participants through that program and so on. In fact, they achieved some kind of a in the sense they almost clocked about 1 lakh video time hours in 1 month and 1.82 lakh hours of audio time on MS Teams and things like that. So digital is here. I mean, it is just that the whole of 2019 we spent deliberating how to embrace digitization. But I think thanks to COVID, we have now got to embrace it with all love and affection, and that too rapidly. Okay.
Thank you. See, it's a we particularly we Indians and people at generally, we have this analysis paralysis thing. We keep on analyzing and we get analyzed with that. But come COVID, the analysis paralysis went away and we went into action. That action has resulted in so many things that you have said, as well as what Dinesh has said. I just wanted to touch upon the 2-3 elements in that. One is, the what is augmenting the online learning? Augmenting the online learning. When we learn things in our childhood and in our teens, it was just text and some audio. That's all. Text and audio, teacher's audio and the text, that is it. Today you have the entire multimedia. All 6 medias are there, and it is augmented by augmented reality, virtual reality. Like Dinesh was telling, when you are teaching cow, the cow is actually coming to the screen, and the teacher is saying, "This is the cow." Whereas physically there is no cow, but virtually the children are seeing the cow on the screen. Okay. Now all this had actually moved into a learning process. It is typically not the pedagogical learning process, but the learning process called SLE, that is self-learning environment. When professor said that I am teaching online, when Dinesh said all my employees, 3.5 lakhs, 4 lakhs employees learning, online, and you said about your company learning online, all these things really put it, and even in the case of St. Gobain in Glasgow, they taught physically, but at the same time, there is something called SLE, self-learning environment, and things are now that again, sir, professor, it is obviating the guru. It is obviating the guru. The guru physically, virtually comes on the screen and goes away. Otherwise, everything comes to a self-learning environment, and we need to be very, 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 very. We need to really be looking at it and see that how we enhance the learning experience of the students. 1. 2, how we personalize the learning, Absolutely. So it is not only enhancing the learning using AR, VR and multimedia, but it's also what he leaves the footprints around. Okay, therefore we will know what sort of a learning methodology can actually give it to him online. Sharma sir, I'll just, okay, you were raising the hand, so if you can be very brief, I'll be happy.
No, yes. Just to supplement this SLE, there are a few trends that are now catching up in industry. The one is, it's a paradox, of course, that as an organization, I need to provide all the learning inputs which will make our business be supported and so on. At the same time, I have to also got to customize and personalize the learning modules. So one concept which is gaining, let's say, currency is a concept called lean learning.
Yes.
Like lean management, we talk about lean learning. And lean learning, again, by definition, is a very focused kind of a process, and they are again given, possibly taking the same example of that 30 ml or whatever, small bites, small learning bites are given to individuals purely based on the business requirements and the work requirements. Now, even before lean learning, there is this concept where companies are now embracing design thinking.
Design
thinking is for rewriting processes, and with COVID today, I think most organizations have to relook at their business models and their business processes. So
thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay. Let me because of the positive time, because
that will again entail the learning and development initiatives. So
thank you very much. Because of the positive time, we have been given exactly about 45-50 minutes, so we need to conclude. So therefore, I take your pardon, and then I come to Mr. John Devdas itself. We have been talking in the last, both Mr. Sharma as well as Mr. Dinesh Thambi had been talking about digitization and digital learning, e-learning, software-based learning, etc., augmented by all these virtual realities. Okay. Now, in manufacturing and in corporates, okay, how do you apply the digital learning processes in manufacturing and in the corporates? And will you be able to give us some input on that?
Yeah. Thanks, Mr. Nair. See, what I'm little, I would say, is practical with respect to what has gone through. I'm more from my experience. I'm not trying to undermine the digital as such.
Yes.
See, what really happened is we found that digital is certainly useful.
Yes.
But at the same time, we have to have a mix. That's a digital, and especially in manufacturing, it is, in Tamil they used to say one this thing, "Eight churakai karikku udavad." That means whatever you write on when you draw on a board, and that is not sufficient. So
Yes.
what we normally do is, one good thing what we found was, and to train big group of people,
Yes.
the concept we can do digitally. But
Yeah.
when they come to the practical, working, they have to apply what they have learned as a concept, and they have to work. So this is faster. So the entire learning becomes faster if you combine digital plus the practical training. So in today's manufacturing situation, if I say that everything I will do digital, probably I mean lying to you. But
Yeah.
maybe around 40 to 50% I can do digital, so that I can train the people and bring them. So the entire thing I can fasten it. I don't have to do it very, very slowly. So that exactly happened during this pandemic, where you have to do everything quite fast. So that way, digital really helped a lot. That's how we did it. Thanks for that.
Great, sir. Great. Actually, see, now you're very clear, and I really understand. When it comes to typical brick and mortar industries, manufacturing, etc., your digital content, your digitization and digitalization process or digital comes to about 40-50% or 40%, 45%. The rest is actually physical. But when it comes to typically what Dinesh Thambi had said and what Mr. Sharma had said in terms of skills and learnings and programming and testing and all those things, if you look at it, close to about 90% is learning and only 10% of the physicality is required. I fully endorse your views, and I'm happy. You without really saying anything wrong or anything bad about digital. You've very succinctly put the differences for us to understand. So I really liked the way that you put it actually. Now coming, Mr. Dinesh, one small question for a quick answer. I was actually I was telling about personalized learning and the precision learning, because when somebody comes on a digital scene, he leaves his footprints behind. Okay, his learning process, his learning liking, his learning methodologies, is the time spent by him, etc., is very evident digitally. It is available. This allows you to personalize your learning. And what you have done at TCS, I think it is something similar to that. Will you be able to give us some input about personalized, at the same time, precision learning for suiting the audience? Yes.
Okay. Yes, sir. As you rightly point, that's what we did in TCS. With this framework, there are a lot of platforms which is available. As it is mentioned, like by Sharma sir, like a 30 ml or a small bits of modules being given, so that they can get engaged, that attention span is kept, and also the ease of learning. It's not like they get like what you call overworked on learning. It's not like, okay, you have to finish it in 3 days and come and write this test. That's not the scenario. So that, because there are a lot of pressures and the environment, like if you look at it, having the discussion now, the times outside is also challenging. So this gives a platform where somebody can initiate a course and they can do it in their own pace. They can like break it there, like they can, and it's all small modules. They will do even the test. So it's like sort of a self-satisfaction also comes into play, where the points are also gathered, and it's like the learning, the career, and the reward. So it's like a tighter linkage of learning, career, and the reward. So by learning, they are like progressing in the career, and like whatever may be the rewards there, it's also like given to them. So that promotes that whole learning. And then we have like platforms like what we finally came into, like called ION, small ION. Yeah. And where like it is also being now given to the general public, for also any student can also register and learn on that. There is a process for that. So that is where I think the whole learning, and it's not only from a digital aspect of it, it also, whether it's a leadership, like there are also sessions broken up into like various time frame, various modules, which each one of us can go in and learn as per our pace.
Convenience,
that is how the whole thing is happening. Basically, to like summarize, even if like I think even the education going forward will be like much more inclusive, and as needed a physical intervention at a certain points of time, there will be a physical intervention coming into play. I think that will be the mode in which even education will be going forward.
Thank you very much, Dinesh. Very well said and very well put it. Okay, so that actually leads me to Professor Nandagopal again. Sir, now yesterday we have seen that the government, the new education policy coming in, and it is obviating UGCs and or technical education departments, and they're trying to put in some other regulatory mechanism and testing and mapping mechanisms, etc. At the same time, a lot of autonomy is being given to institutions and colleges. And you don't have to be part of a university. You can be independent. The autonomy of the syllabi, curriculum, etc. is being given. In fact, Zyme, like an organization, has always taken advantage of that and prepared your content based on the market needs rather than going by the syllabi prescribed by the universities, etc. Okay, these two things. At the same time, I had seen, this is my worry. Now, when they said I'm going online learning, when the students are coming online, they said CBSE had said we are cutting down this much of portions. 30% is cut. Only 70% need to be taught. In management education and in technical education, etc., I can't cut down this 30%, 40%, etc. Because I have to give more. Okay, particularly in management. And then there is internship and other thing which is physical learning processes are required. Now, all these the new regulations and the new policies that is coming, the opening up that is going to happen, and I also understand that the foreign universities are going to come to India. With all these being seen, how do you actually look at this current? Maybe it is not DC, not during COVID. I think all this will stabilize into an after COVID time frame, and the whole thing. So how do you look at this? Currently, it's a little tumultuous. We really do not know what is what, but how it is going to settle down, Professor Nandagopal?
Yeah, I think the first thing you said about the controlling bodies, I think we have too many controlling body like Pharmacy Council and AICT, All India Council of Technical Education, and then we have UGC. So now what the new education policy is saying that there are going to be only one control body except medical and law. So that means that we will have the entire education, one council or one kind of a form they're going to have. And this is what we expected for the last few years. When the new education policy came, we knew that it is going to come. The second one, you talked about decentralization. I think now India, more than 90 to 95% of colleges are under the affiliated British system. Affiliated British system means, for example, some of the universities, take for example, in Tamil Nadu, we have Anna University, which affiliates 450 colleges.
Yes, it is.
So 450 colleges, there is no flexibility. So I think the whole problem in India is higher education suffers because of lack of flexibility.
Yeah.
I think so. This new education policy is going to give a lot of freedom, and they're talking about the timeline where this affiliation system will disappear. Okay. So if you leave the affiliation system, there is a lot of more flexibility, freedom for the institutions to take it. For example, we have almost 400 PGDM institutions in the country against 3,000 affiliated MBA colleges. Look at the quality of the MBA colleges. Look at the PGDM institution. I think that's why the point. And second thing, you talked about the entry of foreign universities. I think we all know as a student of marketing, we have different market segments. So you have A class, B class, C class. I think unfortunately what happened, whenever we talk about the quality of management education or the level of education, we all talk about IIM level. Please understand, IIM caters to the needs of MNCs and the top 10% of the companies in India. Look at the small scale industries. A company which wants to pay 5,000 rupees or 10,000 rupees, little a managerial person. So I think we have to look at A or B or C market segments. So we have to look at if somebody, if everybody gets the IM level, where do you get a manager for small and medium enterprises? So we need somebody who has to work under that environment. So we need that kind of an institution which will cater to the needs. So IM's different. They cater to the multinational. Second level institution looks at. I think we have to clearly define the market segments.
Very good, sir. Very well said. Very well said. Actually, that comes to me. You said about A, B, and C. My worry right now is that the B school, the business, the B school colleges affiliated to engineering colleges and the universities, etc., put together. There is no class. It is not A class, B class, or C class. Currently, we have no class. So I think probably we'll push all this no class into ABC classes together. We are on the very last stage. So now there are two things to happen. One is I would request Professor George to prepare the second poll, which we will say. Now what we're going to do is from each of you, I want to ask a one-line answer. I mean, that is the question is going to be the same because we don't have time. We are almost about 6:58. As per George, we should have concluded now. I'm taking the liberty of taking another 5-10 minutes more. Okay. So Sharma ji, Mr. Sharma.
Yes, sir.
And my question is very simple. I'm saying learning, development, and you. learning, development, and you. Where are you on this?
Continuous learning, lifelong learning.
So that's it. So very well said. Continuous learning. Let me come to Mr. John Devadasan. Sir, in the manufacturing corporate scenario on the learning and development as a catalyst for the industrial progress. Okay, how do you view it?
Maybe a lot of relearning or it's more
So
of
there
to
is
say that
relearning. There is some places there is some unlearning also is required, isn't it, sir?
Yeah, maybe that's a sincere, single word answer. So I thought relearning in the sense doing the same thing in a different manner. That's what I meant.
Right. Dinesh, so technology, learning, development, and you. Tell me.
Yeah, I think we have to keep pace in which how the technology is moving, because the shelf life of technology is collapsing so fast. Yeah. So that is where, because I know, being like starting my career 30 years back, like even if like for 3 months I didn't even read, there is enough time for catch up. So currently that is not the case. So they have to be in pace with what is happening, at least at a high level. And like what we in TCS call as a T factor. So at a broad level, you should know that. And then based on the interest or the situation or the project you are in, go in deep. So that is the way it should be done.
Right. Thank you, Dinesh. Professor, learning, development, you and the infrastructure. What do you say about it?
We have to learn, make others to learn.
Okay. So we will have to use the infrastructure to make others learn. So we are, gentlemen, thank you very much. In fact, this is in my clock, it's about 7 p.m. So as far as panel discussion part is concerned, it is over. We are now going on to the questions. We'll take 10 minutes for the questions. But before that, Professor George, can you put this poll, another 1 minute only. Can you put this poll, the second poll, please? Just to take a dip from the audience. Yeah, it says, having attended this webinar, do you feel convinced to undertake a formal or informal learning process in times ahead? Okay, 1, fully agree. 2, I would rather enhance my existing competencies through my work, that is practical learning. Third, he says, partially agree. Maybe on selected items, I don't want to go and learn everything and at every time. And the last is fully disagree. Will you kindly poll? Will you kindly put in your one answer, of course, again. We have about 30-35 seconds now. In the meanwhile, gentlemen, I have really enjoyed you. Like you say, all of you said, it is lifelong learning. And I totally am a complete convert on this for long years. And it never stops. It really never stops, until you are taken to your, wherever you are taken to in the end, until then you learn. Yes.
That's right.
That's what it is. Can we complete this and can we have an analysis of this? Can we have an analysis of this, Professor George? Yes, here it is. Again, 62% of people say that, okay, after this webinar, they are convinced about the importance of formal, informal, and 28% said that partially agree because only on selected areas. They don't want to learn everything, and 11% said that I would rather enhance my learning through competencies, and the last one, nobody polled. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Just to participate, we have just taken the cue from you. Now, Professor George, you have the questions with you. Will you kindly shoot the questions so that the panelists can answer?
Yeah, okay. So here's the first question. What would be the top 5 work skills that can help workforce to be impactful in a post-COVID world?
Right.
The top 5 work-life skills.
I understand. Can I give this input to question to Mr. Sharma? Yes, sir. Sharmaji. Yes, please go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Just a quick answer to this question is that the first one is life skill is a work ethic. I mean, all of us, whatever be the profession that we do, we have to have a work ethic, a sense of commitment and ownership to whatever we do, and the objective to finally, exceed expectations. I think that is what is called as a work ethic. The second is arising out of that is that we need to be absolutely professional integrity, what they say, in whatever profession that we represent, right? And the third is domain expertise or subject matter specialization. Whatever be our field, we have to be a guru in that area. I mean, there is no way, because that is the only way you can make yourself absolutely invaluable to the organization, because that's what you represent, your domain, right? The third, of course, the fourth one is self-discipline. I mean, there are a lot of things at a personal level which I need to do constantly, continuously, and consistently, in order that I can continue to be what I represent, my personal branding, that is.
Very good, sir.
That's part of your self-development. And the last one is to continuously hone your competencies, because broadly, at a very broad level, just for the participants' understanding, broadly, there are three baskets of competencies. One is your subject matter competencies, or technical or functional competency, as we call it. The second is your managerial competency. Whatever job, whatever level you do, you need to have certain managerial competencies to do that job effectively. And the third is your relationship or behavioral competencies. Now, these three competencies as a band keep on shifting as you grow higher in your careers, from a junior level to a middle to a senior level. And the proportion of these competencies keep on shifting in terms of weightage. And one has to constantly be monitoring your what is it that you require at a particular stage of
Thank you. Very well said. Good answer. I'm so pleased to listen to it, sir. Professor George, second question.
Yeah, the second question is, what are the challenges in learning soft skills through an online mode?
What are the challenges of learning soft skills to an online mode? Okay, because probably Mr. Sharma would be the right person to answer, but I would like to give this question. I like to give this question to Dinesh Thambi. Sir.
Yeah, from see, especially as Sharma sir had mentioned, in this current times, one of the aspects is like nobody is watching. So you have to, like, that is where I think those points are really hit on the nail, because it's a professional integrity and you are at home, nobody is watching. So what you do? So towards that, and the digital aspects anyway come into play, because earlier Professor mentioned about the tools and all those things. But some of the learnings definitely we can do. I don't think there is a challenge in learning through a digital platform, because, and you can, in fact, one of the things is you learn and immediately say, if you plan to a certain extent, like if you have a team meeting coming up, you want to like talk to the team, communication comes into play, and you want to like sharpen something online and through various platforms, you can do that and immediately practice it on the team and say, because trust is one thing which has to be instilled, especially nobody is seeing anyone. The work has to happen, customers has to be serviced, the stakeholders has to be kept happy, organizations has to go. So yeah, that is the self-discipline part coming into play. So learning, because I don't think there is anything, like as I mentioned the earlier example of those kids who are like differently abled, if they are like so enthusiastic in learning and taking it to a next level, all of us can learn. And in fact, with this medium, it's also giving a platform to immediately test it. So that is what the practical aspects comes into play. Even if a team meeting is not arranged, you can call two people on your team or conference call and talk to them and practically see whether what you conveyed, did they understood, or have you instilled that confidence in them to do the work as expected or beyond the expectation.
Thank you, Dinesh. Very well said. Third question, please, Professor.
Okay, here's a question from a student. It says, given the uncertainty around jobs, should I take up any job that I come across related to my domain, or wait for the right one that I'm passionate about?
I will want to put this question to Professor Nandagopal. Let me see what an academician say about it.
No, I think you have to take up a job which you have a passion to do it. I think just don't look at what you are getting, but you have to wait for it. I think the industry is now, you need not worry about the jobs. I think interestingly, I got a lot of people from management B schools. I discussed with a lot of directors. Everyone shared a very interesting thing. I think thanks to industry panelists today, nowhere the job offer was given was denied. Almost 95% of the offers were honored by the industry. I think that shows greatness of the industry. I think you need not be panicked. I think jobs are there. Let us wait for that. You take up a job, what you have your passion to do the job.
Right, sir. Yeah, right, sir. Thank you. George, next question, Professor.
So there is a statement, I don't know if it's a question, but I think, let me frame this into a question. What's the role of instructional design in the change scenario?
What is the role of instructional design and change scenario? The right person to answer this, Ms. John Devadasan. They did it. Actually, the first thing, they really did that actually. Sir, will you please answer this actually?
No, maybe I think I have to understand the question a little better.
Professor, so go again with the question.
Yeah.
What's the role of instructional design in this changed scenario?
Instructional design?
Design.
Still, I am not able to understand.
Professor George,
okay.
Maybe, will you be able to?
Can you read the statement? So probably I can
Basically, instructional design is part of the pedagogy of a training program, in the sense that, like, just to put it across to Mr. John Devadasan, like how much of it will be on-site visit, how much of it will be theory classes, whether a model of the furnace or something will be brought into the classroom, will there be a simulation done, what is the content of the theory portion and the practical portion and things like that. So the question is whether the instructional design, which is the component that I described, components, whether these will undergo a change in the post-digitization scenario.
Yeah. What do you feel?
Thanks, Sharma. I think no,
absolutely no.
Yeah, I think thanks a lot. I think it's a very, very interesting question. So I'm sorry that I don't know. So
no problem, because the question you didn't understand it. I know that actually. Ms. George, one more question.
Yeah. Okay.
No, I'll answer.
John,
I understand. I'll answer.
Yeah. John is answering.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah. This will, it is undergoing, and this will undergo definitely a huge change. See, what you do, take for example, if we take management trainees, you take in a huge number, say 50 to 50 people together, and then we go with systematic training of initial, training at each level theory we give for next 15 days, and then you do the next level of training and then we give an assignment. All that is a typical training. We already started thinking. See, what happens here is we spend quite a lot of money in this. We put them in the hotel, and in a good hotel, and we bring a person, maybe eminent person from that industry to train them. So the expenditure we incur is huge.
Yes.
I know it is useful, but what we are thinking right now is, in fact, we are in the planning process of the next year. What we are thinking is almost 60% of the component is digital, 100%, I'm sure. So the cost is only 15 to 20% of the money what would otherwise have spent. It has become a thing. It's not only cost, the amount of input we are able to give from the expertise is going to be huge. So that component is going to be forever. This change, probably it has brought in by the pandemic only. And we understood that this is going to give an effective thing it's going to do. Second thing, what we found was the shadowing, which we never thought in the past. Shadowing is little different from mentoring. So what we thought will be selecting the people who have the specific interest, put it to the right guys, and who can really train them, work with them. You shadow along with them. So we are allowing them to work with them. So they have a digital learning and shadowing, and then we give the assignments. Then we'll give the assignment, you work on the assignment. It was not so in the past. So the entire thing is going for a change. It will get refined again and again, and over a period of time, maybe in the next 2 to 3 years time, you can see a totally different model. And this model certainly is going to change, and we are changing, and most of the manufacturing industries also will change. So that's for sure.
Very true, very true.
Yeah,
thank you. Now, I am not taking any more questions because it is 7:13, 7:14. But I had seen one of my good friends, Aravind Akshan, who had put a question on the screen telling that in this digitized era, how do children manage the MOQs, multiple objective questions? That's what you were saying. I can understand because Aravind Akshan's daughter is going to write a lot of competitive entrance examinations now. I will take a minute to answer that, and then I will thank you, gentlemen. Now, Arvind, we have discussed this once, but let me also reiterate what I have said. In a MOQ question, particularly in the in the entrance, the JEE and things like that, at least there will be two questions two answers which could be the answer to the question, and an intelligent person get confused with that, and that is when he loses time and he loses confidence and the score goes down. So what I have told people whenever somebody has come to me for advice is that, one, leave it aside and go to the other question that you can answer, and then come back to it. And when you come back to it, or in the first itself, see, in the blink of the time between these two answers, in the blink of the time, whatever you feel is click it, and there is 75 to 80% of chances that would be the right answer. Okay, thank you, Arvind, for the question. Gentlemen, okay, of course there is a lady around, Nirmala, I believe you are still there. Nirmala is a very busy person. She attends something close to about 5 to 6 webinars a day, and she is also socially connected in Toastmasters and things like that.
I'm here, sir.
Yeah, Nirmala is there. Thank you very much, Nirmala. Okay. Professor Nandagopal, Mr. G.D. Sharma, Mr. John Devadasan, Dinesh Tambi, my good friend Dinesh Tambi, and of course Professor George, Mr. Girish, Nirmala, and the host of you who had participated in this as participated as delegates. Okay, for me it was a wonderful learning. Okay, and I definitely do feel that a lot of input that has come, particularly from typical to manufacturing, typical to technology, typical to behavior and relationship, and typical to academics. You know, they have been able to actually put it, their experience and their expertise, their wisdom actually had shown in this. And I have really enjoyed moderating this session. And I thank Professor Nandagopal, Mr. John Devadasan, Mr. G.D. Sharma, and Dinesh Tambi, okay, profusely for participating in this and sparing this time for us, for Zyme as well as ISTD, and also Nirmala for sitting through and your introduction. It is always said, Nirmala, things that begins well, you know, ends very well. So you began the whole thing, and the whole credit I want to put it to you. And Mr. George, I hope you are happy. I hope you are happy.
Thank
you very much, gentlemen. And that's it. Take care. All the best to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.